January may feel like the dead center of winter, but for smart gardeners, it's actually the starting line of the entire growing season. While most people are waiting for spring, the most successful harvests are already being decided, quietly, indoors, under grow lights or sunny windows. Here's the hard truth. If you wait until spring to start everything, you're already behind. Some vegetables demand a long head start. Miss that window, and you'll end up with weak plants, poor harvests, or no harvest at all. These 6 vegetables don't forgive procrastination. They need time. They need patience. And they need to be started in January, or you risk missing their season entirely. If you want stronger plants, earlier harvests, and a garden that actually delivers, these are the vegetables you should be starting right now. 1. Leeks. Leeks are onion's more elegant, slow-moving cousin, and they demand even more patience. Unlike onions, leeks aren't grown for a bulb, but for their long, thick, white stalks. Creating that size takes time, lots of it. From seed to harvest, leeks can take 5 to 6 months, sometimes longer, which makes January the ideal starting point. If leeks are started too late, they never fully recover. Instead of developing thick, tender stalks, they remain thin and weak, even if cared for perfectly later in the season. January started leeks grow slowly at first, focusing almost entirely on root development. For weeks, progress seems minimal above the soil, but below the surface, the plant is building the strength it needs to support heavy growth later. This slow beginning is not a flaw, it's the secret to success. Leeks are incredibly cold tolerant once established. Early transplants can handle chilly spring weather far better than many other vegetables. But that resilience only works if the plants are mature enough when they go outside, and another reason January is so important. Start leek seeds in trays or pots, planting them a bit deeper than onions. Keep the soil consistently moist and provide bright, steady light. Leeks don't like stress. Fluctuations in moisture or light can stunt them permanently. As they grow, you'll notice sturdy, upright leaves forming. By spring, these seedlings should be thick enough to handle transplanting into trenches or deep holes, where soil can be gradually mounded up around them. This blanching process is what creates the long white stalks leeks are prized for. By fall, well-started leeks reward your patience with thick, sweet, mild-flavored stalks that improve with cold weather. Many can even be harvested through frost and light snow. Leeks started too late rarely reach this stage. January is the dividing line between thin, disappointing stems and beautiful, kitchen-worthy harvests. 2. Onions. Onions are one of those crops that quietly punish impatience. They don't rush, they don't adapt to shortcuts, and they absolutely demand an early start if you want large, dense, well-formed bulbs. For onions, January isn't just recommended, it's essential. What makes onions different from most vegetables is that their bulb formation depends primarily on day length, not temperature. As the days begin to lengthen in late spring and early summer, onions receive a biological signal to stop growing leaves and start forming bulbs. If the plant is still small at that moment, the result is inevitable. Tiny onions, no matter how fertile the soil or how carefully you water them. That's why starting onions in January makes such a dramatic difference. Those extra weeks indoors allow the plants to grow strong, deep root systems and thick, healthy leaf bases long before they ever face outdoor conditions. Every leaf an onion produces early becomes a ring in the final bulb, so more early growth directly equals bigger onions later. Growing onions from seed also gives you far more variety than store-bought sets. You can choose sweet onions, storage onions, red, white, or yellow types, and select the exact day-length variety that suits your region. Long day, short day, or intermediate day onions all benefit from a January start, especially in cooler climates. Sow seeds densely in shallow trays or containers, barely covering them with soil. Onion seeds don't need depth, they need consistent moisture and bright light. Within a week or two, you'll see thin, grass-like seedlings emerge. At first glance, they don't look impressive, but this stage is critical. Keep seedlings under strong light to prevent stretching. As they grow, trim the tops to about 3 to 4 inches tall. This doesn't harm the plants. It actually encourages thicker stems and stronger root development. Think of it as weight training for onions. By early spring, you'll have sturdy, pencil-thick transplants ready to handle outdoor conditions. Once planted in the garden, these onions grow aggressively, already months ahead of anything started later. Gardeners who skip January often wonder why their onions stay small or refuse to bulb. The answer is simple. The clock started without them. 3. Peppers. Peppers may love heat, sunshine, and long summer days, but what they absolutely hate is being rushed. From seed, peppers are among the slowest vegetables you can grow. Germination alone can take 2 to 3 weeks, sometimes longer, and once they sprout, early growth is steady but unhurried. That slow pace is exactly why January starts are so important. Peppers need time, not just to grow leaves, but to build thick stems, strong branching, and a deep root system capable of supporting heavy fruit loads later in the season. When peppers are started too late, they simply don't have enough time to reach that mature, productive stage before the season ends. A January start gives peppers a long runway. Instead of struggling to catch up in spring, they develop gradually indoors, protected from cold nights and unpredictable weather. By the time they're transplanted outdoors, they're already sturdy, confident plants, not fragile seedlings. Heat is critical for pepper seeds. They germinate best between 75 and 85 degrees Fahrenheit, which often requires a heat mat indoors during winter. Without enough warmth, seeds may rot instead of sprouting. Once they emerge, light becomes the next priority. Peppers need intense, direct light to prevent weak, stretched growth. Strong light early equals thick stems later. Peppers that start early form a solid framework before flowering even begins. This matters more than most gardeners realize. Each branch becomes a potential fruit-bearing site. The more branches a pepper plant develops early, the more flowers, and ultimately peppers, it can support. When peppers are started late, the plant often enters flowering mode while still small. The result is fewer flowers, fewer fruits, and a harvest that arrives late, sometimes too late to fully ripen before cold weather returns. In cooler climates especially, January is the dividing line. Early started peppers can produce continuously all summer and into fall. Late started peppers often deliver only a handful of fruits before frost ends the season. Peppers reward patience and preparation. Give them a January start, and they repay you with heavy yields, thicker walls, richer flavor, and earlier harvests. Skip it, and no amount of summer heat can make up for lost time. 4. Eggplant. Eggplant follows the same basic rule as peppers, but with even higher expectations and far less forgiveness. These plants demand time, warmth, and stability, and if they don't get all three early on, they never truly recover. From seed, eggplants are slow and deliberate. Germination can take weeks, and once the seedlings emerge, they focus first on root development rather than visible growth. This early phase is critical. January starts allow eggplants to quietly build strong, deep root systems and thick, woody stems long before they ever face outdoor conditions. That structure is what determines everything that follows. Eggplants produce large, heavy fruit. Without sturdy stems and a solid root base, plants struggle to hold blossoms, suffer from poor pollination, and often drop flowers before fruit can set. Late-started eggplants frequently look healthy on the surface but never reach their full potential. When eggplants are started in January, they enter spring already strong and confident. Instead of stalling after transplanting, they accelerate. Warm soil and rising temperatures trigger rapid growth rather than shock, allowing the plant to focus on flowering instead of survival. Early size also matters because eggplants need time. Time to flower, time to set fruit, and time for that fruit to fully mature. In many climates, summer heat arrives suddenly and disappears just as fast. A late start means eggplants are still trying to grow when they should already be producing. Strong early development leads to thicker stems, more branching, better airflow, and improved pollination. Flowers stay on the plant instead of dropping, fruit sets more reliably, and eggplants grow larger, glossier, and more evenly shaped. Late-started eggplants often produce a few small fruits, then stall as temperatures cool. January-started plants continue producing well into late summer and early fall. If you want firm, glossy eggplants with deep color and rich flavor, not thin plants with a handful of disappointing fruit, January is not optional. It's the foundation of success. 5. Celery. Celery is one of the most misunderstood vegetables in home gardens, and without question one of the least forgiving. Many gardeners treat it like lettuce or herbs, assuming it will grow quickly once planted. In reality, celery plays by completely different rules, and if you miss the January window, it almost always shows. Celery has an exceptionally long growing season, often taking 120 to 150 days from seed to harvest. What makes it even more challenging is how slowly it grows at the beginning. For the first month or more, celery seedlings seem to do almost nothing at all. This isn't failure, it's simply how celery develops. Starting celery in January gives you the luxury of time. You're not forcing growth or trying to catch up later. Instead, you allow the plant to establish itself gradually, exactly the way it prefers. Celery seeds are extremely small, almost dust-like, and they require light to germinate. If they're buried too deeply, they won't sprout at all. The soil surface must remain consistently moist but never soaked. Even brief drying during germination can stop the process completely. Warmth is just as important. Celery germinates best at temperatures between 65 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit. January indoor conditions allow you to maintain this stability, something that's nearly impossible outdoors in early spring. Once celery sprouts, patience becomes the most important tool. For weeks, growth above the soil remains minimal. Thin stems and tiny leaves creep upward at a frustrating pace. But below the surface, the plant is building an extensive root system, and that unseen work determines the quality of the harvest months later. Celery thrives in cool weather, but reacts badly to stress. Heat, drought, inconsistent watering, or sudden temperature swings all cause problems. When stressed, celery becomes bitter, hollow, and stringy. Starting early allows the plant to mature before the worst summer heat arrives, locking in that crisp texture and mild flavor celery is known for. Gardeners who delay celery until spring often find themselves chasing problems all season. The plants remain thin, bolt prematurely, or never develop thick stalks at all. In many cases, the harvest simply isn't worth the effort. January-grown celery, on the other hand, enters the garden strong, well-rooted, and ready to grow steadily. By the time summer arrives, it's already mature enough to handle warmer conditions without sacrificing quality. With celery, timing is everything, and January is the difference between frustration and success. 6. Artichokes. Artichokes are in a category all their own. They aren't just vegetables, they're long-term projects that demand planning, patience, and commitment. But when done right, they reward you with one of the most impressive and unique harvests you can grow at home. From seed, artichokes take an exceptionally long time to mature. Many varieties need 8 to 12 months before they are capable of producing edible buds. That means timing isn't just important, it's everything. Starting artichokes in January gives them the extended growth period they require to build size, strength, and energy reserves. Without that early development, the plant may grow lush foliage but never reach the threshold needed to produce buds. Artichokes also rely on temperature cues. Most varieties need exposure to cool conditions to trigger flowering later in the season. But here's the key. The plant must be large and mature enough to respond to that cold signal. Small, underdeveloped plants simply ignore it. January starts ensure artichokes are already well established when temperatures fluctuate in spring. That early cold exposure becomes a signal to produce buds, not a stress event. As they grow, artichokes become massive, architectural plants with thick stems and silvery, deeply cut leaves. They dominate space, demand attention, and transform a garden visually. But all that growth only happens when the plant has time. Gardeners who delay often end up with beautiful foliage and no harvest. The plant looks impressive, but the edible buds never appear. That disappointment almost always traces back to one mistake: starting too late. When started in January, artichokes enter the growing season ahead of schedule. They grow faster, respond correctly to environmental cues, and are far more likely to produce large, tender buds in their first year. And once established, many artichoke plants continue producing for years, making that early investment even more valuable.